Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest 10 things you didn't know about video. As always, I just do these videos randomly when I come across something that I read, something that I feel merits posting here within this playlist, such as the case with a recent article regarding that 2015 horror film called Baskin. This is an absolutely just amazing and haunting horror film, one that I've seen twice already, but each time that I've seen it, there's so many strange meanings and then visuals and then these unanswered scenarios and then mysterious characters and then just basically so many things that leave you just wondering and wanting more, that it definitely does leave an impression on you afterward. Now, I've already done a video on Baskin a couple of years back. I'll include the link for it below in case you haven't had a chance to see it. It was an in-depth analysis associated with that film. It got a good number of views, so a lot of people were interested in it. Again, check it out when you have a chance. But for this video, it's about 10 things you didn't know about the film, which allows me to present new items here that I thought were interesting and fascinating. And so I'll share those 10 things and then give my own thoughts and opinions on them too. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. It's 10 things you didn't know about the film Baskin. Let me know as well what your own thoughts and comments are on there too. So in no particular order, let's go ahead and let's do the first one here, and which is this. If you've ever wondered what the meaning of the name Baskin is, I've been thinking about that for a while, and then I finally decided to look it up and see essentially what this means. Here's what it is. So first off, Baskin is a Turkish film. It was filmed there in Istanbul, and basically Baskin means in that language police raid, which when you think about it now makes perfect sense, because essentially that's what the film was about. It was about these group of policemen. They're considered both heroes and anti-heroes. So they're good guys, but they're also kind of bad guys as well. It's almost like a gray area for them. They end up receiving this distress signal, and so because of it, they decide to raid an area that they probably shouldn't have been there in the first place. And so because of it, they end up inadvertently entering hell. So again, that's why it's called Baskin, because it means police raid, and these were policemen who were raiding a certain locations. It's kind of ironic because had they waited instead to call backup, or if they hadn't had so much bravado within them and instead thought things out, maybe even taking their time when it came to getting to that specific location, they would have saved themselves a lifetime, an absolute just infinite lifetime of eternal agony afterwards. So once I saw the meaning associated with that title, it suddenly made sense. Number two is this, and this is a big one. It has to do with the prominent role played by Mehmet Serahoglu. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Mehmet Serahoglu. He was the actor who played the father within the film. There's so much interesting stuff associated for both his character and behind the scenes with the actor as well. For starters, if you can believe it, this was his first role ever, his brand debut associated with acting. You would never believe that after seeing this movie, because he's such a natural when it comes to acting, and then when it comes to the scenes, it's almost like he was born essentially to be in this type of movie and to be an actor. And if you're wondering if there was any makeup involved associated with his look, absolutely not. He actually suffers from some kind of unnamed skin condition which causes him to look exactly like he does within the film. That's why essentially he was cast within the film, because the director, a guy by the name of Can Evernall, was looking for somebody with a very unique look associated with them for this role. And it was stated that once he saw this casting pic or profile pic with Mehmet Serahoglu, then that's when he decided that's it. That's going to be the person that's going to play the father within the film itself. This also coupled with his short stature and then also a very, very calm demeanor that the actor portrays throughout all of his scenes, it makes for a very unsettling villain. Like this was a role that definitely came out of nowhere the very first time that I saw it. I mean, there's something just about the very calm nature, more calm that Mehmet plays the father's character, the more creepier it becomes afterward. And then also with Mehmet, if you can believe this as well, before he even took on this role, he was a car park attendant. I guess another way of saying it is he was almost like a valet, something along those lines. And the idea was that he had submitted his profile to some casting agency there in his region and simply waited, get this, 10 years. He was waiting 10 years until finally somebody had called him. In this case, it was that director, Can Evernall. Who knows if he was still even thinking at that time that it was a possibility to be in the film world, but it just goes to show you never know when opportunity knocks. And in his case, it took 10 years of finally waiting and then having this role that basically changed his whole life afterward. But absolutely just an amazing, natural, gifted actor whenever you see this movie, and then you see the impact that Mehmet's role for the father had within the entire movie. Like the whole movie just was on his shoulders, and he made it work so well. Number 3 is this. The same thing I was mentioning earlier a minute ago as far as those peaceful, almost ramblings, almost soliloquies associated with the father. There's some basis associated with it. They're all linked to Colonel Kurtz from the famous film Apocalypse Now. I've seen that movie. I've started the book. I remember it was a while back that I saw that I was reading the book that the film was based on. But essentially, the Colonel Kurtz character, a lot of it transferred over into the character of the father within this film. And you can kind of see those links afterward. They obviously share a very memorable look when it comes to their bald look, as far as everything being 100% shaved on top. But there's also, of course, some stark differences, almost like they're parallels of each other. For example, Colonel Kurtz was supposed to be portrayed as a giant. Like he was someone that was meant to tower over everyone, in particular the citizens there of the jungle that he was in, and then that way everyone would have to look up to him, physically look up to him, while on the parallel side, the father was someone that was obviously very, very short, and in his case, everyone had to look down. So in one scenario, you had people looking up, in another scenario, you had people looking down, both of them having that bald look, and then, of course, having those peaceful ramblings / soliloquies throughout the film. So next time you watch the film and you've seen Apocalypse Now, try to pay attention to those particular similarities / links, and then you'll see why or where it's based from on there. Number 4 is this. Many of the areas that the film shot at there in Istanbul came at a risk. This is because a lot of those derelict, almost abandoned locations that the film was shooting at, a lot of them were done apparently without permits. Like it was a scenario where it was, let's see how far we can get without getting caught. And a lot of it involved very risque scenes. Obviously, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about when it comes to that stuff. And they were doing it in areas that are considered, quote unquote, more conservative throughout the film. So they were in a risky situation. In fact, it involved a lot of quick shots within the film right in the middle of the night with the hopes that they wouldn't get caught. I kind of like this because it almost, you could see it through the scenes. It almost added more tension because you wanted to see more of those areas that the film was portraying, but because of the necessity of shooting things quickly, you only saw certain things for the briefest of moments. It definitely made you want to see more with regards to those locations. I got that impression at least. Let me know if you guys and gals got that too. In fact, this was a quote from the director, Ken Evernall. Directly from him, this is what he said. He said, "Our permits were at times iffy, so we were always stressed about the authorities finding out what the hell we were doing in some of our crazy locations. We had naked people on set in the most conservative areas of town, and that was a constant stress. Also, the time limitations for certain scenes made them really difficult. Again, I thought this worked out much better for the film. And then who knows if there's a sequel on that. More on that here in a minute. Maybe they'll follow that same pattern too. Number 5 is this: frogs. If you've seen the film, you'll know that there's some scenes that showcase frogs almost playing like a prominent symbol or some kind of metaphor throughout certain parts of the film. In fact, they turn up pretty much early on within the film itself. If you've ever wondered why that could be, there's no direct quote, or there's no direct link to their meaning. This is one of those things again within the film that makes it so fascinating. Why it's there's so much mysterious stuff, and how it leaves it unanswered on purpose, that makes you try to delve and get that information afterward yourself. But here's what I could find, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but in most iterations throughout history and throughout cultures, frogs are supposed to represent prosperity and good luck, and they're supposed to remain that way throughout most of the cultures. But in the film, it's almost like it's a 180-degree difference. In fact, here's a quote once again from the director Ken Evernall when it comes to his decision to put frogs. He stated, "The frogs are there because they symbolize the doom that is approaching. Frogs are doom bringers in mythology. In a way, they are the manifestation of the arrival of Baskin's villain, i.e., the father." So essentially, every time you're going to see these frogs pop out within the film, they're almost like a precursor, almost like a trailer to the doom and to the evil that the father is about to bring forth through the film itself. It's a twist when it comes to the mythology associated with them. Number 6 is this. Let's talk about the theory associated with, are these policemen, are they in hell throughout the film itself? This is something that again remains wonderfully vague, wonderfully mysterious to the film. Certainly toys with this idea throughout its course. In fact, when you really think about it and you think hard, and let's say you analyze this, what looks like it's supernatural throughout most of the film could in fact be just real life. And here's what I mean. Like a creepy hooded guy bringing in meat at the beginning of the film. I mean, that could be a real person. It could be somebody that was just doing that out there in the real world. Same thing with the aforementioned frogs. You could have a swarm of frogs suddenly pop up nowhere. The crash that happened within the film, that could also be just 100% real, just something happening in terms of somebody almost running somebody over, and then them finding both abandoned, derelict buildings, and then all these creepy people that are surrounding them on the outside, like the village people. That again could just be real. It's just something that when you think about it is out here in the real world as well. Same thing with the people that are found within the building, like that sadistic cult, one that believes in sadism, one that believes in pain and torture. Same thing with the underground basement that the policemen run into. All of that could have basis of real life, like people that essentially do these things and then just do it in this earth as we know of it right now. There's nothing really supernatural associated with it, but the film expertly throws in a loop towards the very end when the main character, Arda, he goes through that almost like insane moment where he's laughing crazily and then he's trying to run out of that building, and then he comes onto the road itself, and then that's when he crashes into a van, and then it's revealed that this is the same van that was the policemen were in from earlier in the film. This implies some kind of supernatural loop. That's the moment, the closest moment you could think of where things take that more of a paranormal / supernatural turn, because it implies that this is truly about hell. Usually with the mythology of hell, it's the idea that it's infinite. It's almost like these infinite loops of just unbearable pain. Like those of you that are in hell, that at least according to mythology, it showcases that people will be there forever until eternity, and then they'll be involved with some kind of excruciating pain. Obviously, it's not a place that's going to be something that's going to be good, but in their case, they're going to have everything associated with this pain for the rest of eternity itself. It's very similar to Silent Hill, the games and then the mythology associated with them, how they have a lot of looping things as well. You can see fans throughout, like physical fans throughout multiple parts of the games. You'll see a bunch of circles, you'll see a bunch of machines that are repeating things as well, and it's making characters forever go through these loops. In fact, there's a term associated with that within the game and within the mythology called the full circle. It's the idea that the location Silent Hill will never let people escape it. They have to go around in a loop forever and ever and ever, and that's what the theory is associated with Baskin. The idea that these policemen are in hell and that they in turn are going to be looping it forever. There's another theory that I was reading actually that kind of is interesting too. I'll just throw this in. It's the idea that the men are actually involved in a lucid dream and that we're watching it through someone's dreams. It could actually be the main character, Arda, and then we watch them interact within it. So let me know what you guys think about that. Could that be something associated with that theory as well? All right, and number 7 is this. The film obviously has a cult following after its release. It's been gaining in popularity more and more. If you didn't know, there was an actual set of memorable action figures that were created from the film. So those of you that are into collectibles, those of you that are into these little trinkets associated with films, you're kind of in luck. It's a good news, bad news situation. So yes, there was a company called Good Leg Toys that decided to create some of these action figures. In fact, you're looking at some of those pictures here. It involves 3 characters from the film itself. But that's the good news. The bad news is it is extremely, absolutely extremely limited. We're talking 15 figures each. You heard that right. 15 only from each of those characters. So what? That's a total of 45 pieces that were made. They were sold at the time for $65 each individual figure, or you could get the whole set, all 3 of them, for $165. And so I did a couple of calculations. If somebody wanted to get all of the sets, and that involved all the characters, all 3 of them at a time, they would be paying about $2,475. But if somebody bought them all individually, it would come to about $2,925. 100% completely handmade too. All of these were painstakingly just done as is, not made by any machines is what it looked like. It was just all like handmade and so on. But yes, these are extremely rare, super rare. I couldn't even find any of them as an example on eBay. So only 15 of each were made, a total of 45 altogether. And I remember seeing one of them at a Texas Frightmare a couple of years back, and it was there for several $100s. So who knows what the price is now? Somebody, if you know more information on that as far as this extremely limited set of action figures, post it in the comments below. Let me know what the current prices are. Whoever has them, they're not selling them because I haven't seen, again, any examples of them online. But yeah, if you had a chance, and when it came out back a couple of years, like right during the release of the movie by Good Leg Toys, you could have had the opportunity to have these in your possession as well. Number 8 is this. I was mentioning this a minute ago. Sequel talk. Is there any talk of a sequel? Unfortunately, now that we have the passage of time, and since the movie came out in 2015, and as of this year, nothing has apparently come about. This is, again, besides the film gaining this cult following and a new appreciation with each year that it passes. It's just one of those situations where it's almost like there's no blip associated with any kind of news. In fact, here's a direct quote, which could give you an idea of what the director, Ken Evernall, has to say about this. When I saw this quote, it kind of made me realize a little bit more as to why there's not a sequel just yet. He says, this was probably at the time at the film when it was first released and then it was getting the recognition that it had. He said, I'm really enjoying the journey of Baskin. Yes, I was hoping for a more art house horror journey, but since today it was picked for Midnight Madness and not Vanguard at TIFF, that's the Toronto International Film Festival, it is repeatedly hailed as a gory horror movie above all else. I embraced that. It worked for a lot of us and made the film very famous indeed, but I also love it as a different kind of art house film, and I hope people see it both ways. So the impression I got from his quote was this. The film, it sounded like he made it more, and it makes sense when you think about it. It's very stylistic. It has these amazing visuals associated with it, a slow pacing. It has this again, just mysteriousness and just begging for you to try to figure things out yourself mentality. He made it more on the lines of an art house film, as he was stating. It's one of those that would play throughout cities and then maybe get a cult following, but from an art perspective. But he suddenly saw that once it was picked, as he stated, for Midnight Madness, and then others started just calling it a ultra horror film, then that's when it caught on in that regard. It was a film that was more on the lines of, for lack of a better term, like in the world of Terrifier, rather than small art house films. I got the impression that he didn't want it to go that way, but it did, and it caught on, and then now that's what it's remembered for. So maybe that's why he just hasn't made a sequel yet, because he wanted it to be associated with something else, but then it ended up being just embraced as another thing on there. And then number 9, more talk associated with the sequel, but it has to do with this. Let's talk about the film's finances. The film, Baskin, was technically a financial bust. It did not make money, at least within its quote unquote worldwide release. There was a lot of buzz that came out when the movie was first released, and it was released in a small number of theaters, but still those got some viewings. But ultimately, throughout its entire lifetime in theaters, drum roll, it made $318,000. That's it. $318,000 throughout the entire world. Unfortunately, I could not find any numbers on, like, when it comes to rentals or when it comes to DVD and Blu-ray numbers. So one would think that with its cult following, it made a bit more money when it came to that world. I just can't find those numbers, but one would think again that they're more manageable numbers. But it was such a slow turn associated with making that money that I think it ties into why there's been a delay associated with the sequel. Investors and anyone else who wants to make movies, they want that money now. Like when it comes to making a profit, they don't want to wait 10 years of the film getting a cult following and then slowly but surely getting more rentals and getting more sales, and then finally, having a profit after that time. That doesn't work. And so that's why I think this slow burn that the film had helped it when it comes today being recognized as a pioneer in the world of horror movies. But at the same time, I think it hurt it when it came to that as well. So that's my theory, at least, why the film, when it was a financial bust, made on such a small budget, but at the same time making such a small amount of money. That's why I don't think there's been a sequel as of yet. And then number 10 is this. One last link associated with the idea of sequels is there being hope, a good hope for the film itself, for having a part 2. The same thing I was mentioning as far as the budget, it was actually made for $350,000, and it was made very quickly. In fact, it was shot only over 28 nights, if you could believe that, less than 1 month. Shot only at night, no day shots at all. And then there was a month before that of pre-production, and then about 2 months after that of post-production. So if you add the pre-production, if you add the shoots, and then you add the post-production, you're looking at a total of 4 months. 4 months from start to finish. And so 4 months, 350,000, there is hope, because if a sequel comes out sometime in the future, and let's say it's made in this very same manner, shot quickly and then shot with very low budget, then there's a good chance it could be made, because somebody could realize, hey, we can still make some money off of this, and let's go ahead and let's get the director. Maybe we'll get the actor from The Father to come out again, something along those lines. And then that's boom. Then we have part 2 associated with this franchise. It reminded me of the recent Terrifier movies, how they're made with a very low budget, like super small, and they're shot over a quick time period, and that allows it to try to get as much profit as possible as it screens throughout the entire US. So there is hope, but one has to again count on somebody doing this investment, and then of course the director being able to come back and then decide we've got an idea and that he wants to truly do a sequel, another part 2 for it. But then that's it. That's everything associated. 10 things you didn't know about the film Baskin. Check out my other video again where I went into a deep analysis associated with certain scenes. Let me know if I missed anything here as well. Post those comments below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.